Hello, hello everybody. Hello. I'm just getting this live set up. So if you're just joining us, just bear with me for a minute while more people get on and I share this to all the pages that it has to go to. And we're live for the first time on the Health Ed Instagram today. So that's really exciting. Oops. Hello. I'm just getting this shared and everything before we get started. I hope everyone's Friday is going wonderfully. I feel like today went by really fast, which for me, Fridays tend to go by slow because I'm so excited it's a Friday and I'm so excited it's the weekend that it just drags on for me personally. Okay, and then all right, so I think we have all of that taken care of. And we're about ready to get started. I'm just gonna make sure that I can see this live on my computer and I'm gonna mute that. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. For anyone who's watching this, whether you're watching it live, whether you're watching this after the fact, if you don't know who I am, my name is Hannah and I am a health educator with the Health Education Program. And usually we come on here on Fridays on the spot and we do activities. But this week we're doing something a little bit different that we haven't done before. Hi Cheyenne. We are going to be answering your anonymous questions that you asked me during the week. If you've ever seen Shy and Alexander do this, they have done these videos before too, and they were really successful, and we have a lot of good questions. So if you see me looking in two different places, that's because I am live on the Health Education Instagram page. So if you don't already follow us on Instagram, check us out there. We are at Health Education OCO. This is actually our first time doing a live video there. Usually there's a little bit of a lag with Facebook, but since I'm live on my iPad and on my phone, I think that they should be pretty synced up. So hopefully they are. I can see that we do have one person with us on the Instagram, so hello, welcome. I'm gonna try to be looking in like the same place for this video, but I do apologize if it's a little bit distracting. And I apologize if the glare on my glasses is distracting because that drives me nuts, but I can't see my laptop screen unless I have them on, so I am sorry for the glare. I'm in a new filming place. I'm in some air conditioning. I'm really grateful to have in this really challenging heat wave we are in. I hope that everyone is staying cool, and if you need to check out ways to stay cool in a heat wave, especially if you don't have access to a pool, you should go over to the OCO 2 for 2 page where Tyler did a video about staying cool and beating the heat, and it looked so fun, and it's like an activity you can do with kids, but I'm an adult and I think that those activities look fun for adults too. So yeah, check that out. So now that we've gotten some housekeeping out of the way, we're gonna go ahead and get started with these anonymous questions. Yeah, AC is, I'm in my aunt and uncle's house right now because they have AC, but I don't have AC at my house or in my bedroom or anything, so I feel really blessed that they're letting me work in their house today. Yeah, so if you don't know, this week we had an anonymous question box posted and we did get some good questions, so I am going to be answering those. And if something comes up while I'm talking and it sparks a question, if you didn't get to submit an anonymous question, feel free to go ahead and write it. If I don't know the answer, I might not answer it on here, but I will look it up and I will post the answer to that question on Monday. And that's kind of how we do anonymous questions when we're in school too. We always say that although I'm an educator, I am still learning, and there's definitely things that I don't know, so if I don't know the answer, I will find it for you. So we're gonna get started and get into these questions. Now, when we do Q&As, especially when they are anonymous, it's important to know that we take these questions with absolutely no judgment, and this is a place for you to ask questions that maybe you're not super comfortable asking your parent or a guardian or an older sibling, a friend, a teacher. Sometimes we just might not feel comfortable going to those closest to us with questions that can be so personal when they involve sexual health, sex in general, things like that. So let's just remember that this is a completely judgment-free zone, and just like when we're in a classroom or when we're having a discussion, when we're all together, we want to keep that in mind. There is no such thing as an embarrassing question, as a wrong question, or a dumb question. So with that being said, let's truly get started. And yes, hello everybody. And I am going to be looking in this direction to read off of my laptop. So the first question that we have is period sex safe to have? Hi, Kenzie. So I do want to say for this question, I want to say, yeah, you did. We're just getting started. I want to put a little bit of a trigger warning on this question. We are going to be talking about blood and menstruation. So if you are a bit squeamish with this topic, you might just want to turn down your volume, and you know what I'll give a thumbs up to the camera when we're done with this question. But go ahead, and if you are a little bit squeamish with this topic, you are absolutely allowed to click off for a minute or turn your volume down. So, the question is period sex safe to have? And the answer is yes. So it is safe to have sex while on your period. It can be messy, but it is safe. And there are even benefits to having sex while on your period. So first I'm going to go over some of those benefits, and then I'm going to go over potential side effects or drawbacks to having sex on your period, because it's important that we encompass all of the things that involve that. And I will be posting the links to where I got this information throughout this entire Q&A in the comments. So, the first benefit that we have is, according to OBGYN Alyssa Dweck, period sex can shorten your period because when you orgasm, the muscles contract and push out more blood. So this means that you can also masturbate during your period to possibly shorten the length. And we know that when people do engage in sex, orgasm does not always happen. So this is specific to having an actual orgasm. This is not a guarantee that it will shorten your period, just like any of some little tips and tricks that you may have heard. They're not always a guarantee, but it definitely does help. So that's our first benefit, is that period sex can actually shorten your period if you reach orgasm, and masturbation is another way that you can do that. Number 2, orgasms can relieve cramps because endorphins are released, and this is according to Dr. Jen Luke, who's a reproductive endocrinologist. So there's actually a physiological reason that orgasms can relieve cramps due to PMS, and that is because of the endorphins that are released when you have an orgasm. And again, you can achieve this through sex or through solo sex, masturbation. Number 3, our third benefit, is that your sex drive is increased during your period because of hormonal fluctuations. So if you find your sex drive to be higher while you're menstruating, it's not in your head. It's not something that's like, oh, I feel like my sex drive is really high when I'm on my period. There's an actual reason for that, and that's due to hormonal fluctuations. It is super interesting, Shy. Like, I think it does make sense. Yeah, I've heard that too. That orgasms can help clear sinuses. I think it also has something to do with like muscle contraction. I think that has to do a lot with blood flow, because I think blood rushes to that part of your body and it like makes your sinuses get smaller, I think. But again, I'm kind of going based off of memory of what I've read about that, but definitely. Okay, so we have orgasms can shorten your period, orgasms can relieve cramps, and your sex drive is actually higher while on your period. So if you do want to have sex while on your period, there's an actual reason for that. And then number 4, when you're on your period, blood acts as a natural lubricant. So you can use less lube, and this can also make sex more pleasurable because, as we know, the more lubricant that's used during sex, usually the more comfortable everything is for all partners involved. So that's another interesting tidbit. And then number 5, this is our last benefit that we'll go over. And just so you know, this is not an exhaustive list. I encourage you to do your own research and see what other benefits people may have had when it comes to having sex on their period. This is just what I read from a few articles. And I made sure that this was all backed up and supported by doctors and evidence. Number 5, People who get migraines during their period report that sex either partially or completely gets rid of their headaches. So that's another one of those benefits, like we talked about, with the sinuses or with cramps. So, and it also mentioned that a lot of people who get migraines when they're on their period, sometimes that can make you feel like when you have a migraine, that doesn't really make you want to have sex because you don't feel well, but then people find that when they do, it actually makes them feel better. So another really interesting benefit to having sex while on your period. Okay, so now we are going to go over the potential side effects or drawbacks to having sex while on your period. The first one, this one is kind of self-explanatory, and I mentioned it in the beginning. It can be messy. So if you or your partner are squeamish around blood, period sex may not be for you. But something that it mentioned in the article that might take away these kind of gross feelings is that when you're on your period, what's coming out is actually not just blood. There's a lot of other fluids involved, so it's not like there's a ton of blood involved as much as you might think there is, if that makes sense. But then again, it's not for everybody, and it's important to have that conversation with your partner before engaging in sex on your period, or engaging in sex anytime. There should be a conversation leading up to that. Number 2, STIs like HIV and hepatitis live in blood and can spread through menstrual blood. So as always, use a condom, and that's not only to protect you against these specific STIs that are transmitted through blood, but also to protect you from all STIs, because whether you're on your period or not, there's still a risk of transmission. Number 3, and this one's pretty important. You have to take your tampon out before having sex. If not, it can get pushed up so far during sex that you will have to see a doctor to have it removed. I don't know about anyone else, but I know that when I was growing up, I feel like when we were first introduced to tampons, like during our puberty talk, a big fear, I think, among especially adolescents is a tampon getting lost. And while that is fairly uncommon, as long as you're changing your tampon regularly and as long as the string is there, this is one circumstance where that could actually happen, and it has really detrimental effects on your health. So you definitely have to take out a tampon before engaging in vaginal sex, penetrative sex. And if the reason you are not taking it out is because you are trying to stop blood from coming out during sex, then maybe that means period sex just isn't for you, because it's definitely not safe to engage in sex when you do have a tampon in. However, it is safe to engage in oral sex while on your period, and you can leave a tampon in during that. Just remember that if you're switching from oral sex to then vaginal or penetrative sex, make sure that you are taking that tampon out. You can also use a dental dam to have oral sex while on your period. And then number 4, this is actually something we talked about a couple weeks ago when we did trivia. You can absolutely still get pregnant while on your period. Although the odds are lower, it is still possible. So I'm just going to turn this on. So this is why. If your period is shorter, there is more of a chance of getting pregnant. Sperm can stay alive inside your body for up to 7 days. So if you have sex toward the end of your period, there's a chance you'll be releasing an egg while sperm is still in your reproductive tract. So I know that this is something that can be a little bit confusing, and honestly, it's a little bit confusing for me too. So again, this is something I encourage you to do more research on if you would like to, and this is also something that I think we can do a complete video on in the future, because I think the whole process can get a little bit confusing for people, especially because I think in the mainstream media or the common kind of knowledge is that you can't get pregnant during your period, but you really can. So it's really important that you are, for one thing, if you take a birth control that's not like an IUD or an implant. So if you like take the pill or you use the ring or something like that, it's important that you are following those instructions very carefully, and also that you are using condoms. So just be aware of that. Okay, now here are just some little tips for you if you have never had period sex before and you want to. Number one, we went over this, discuss with your partner first, make sure you're both okay with it. Hi Sam, we have someone on our Instagram Live. Thank you. Number two, remember to remove your tampon. You don't want to forget, and you definitely don't want to be leaving it in on purpose. Number three, to kind of eliminate the risk of making a mess, you can lay down a dark colored towel underneath you while you're engaging in sex. And then, did I say number two? That was number three. Number four, you can use wet wipes or a wet towel to clean up afterwards. You can just keep it next to your bed, or you can even have sex in the shower or the bath. That helps alleviate some of that mess as well. And then the last one is use a condom. Not only does this keep things a little bit less messy, but it also prevents the transfer of those fluids that we talked about, and it protects you against all STIs. And then the last thing that we want to go over for this question is this stereotype that I'm sure you've heard, but if you haven't, I'll explain it. This stereotype that for relationships, when one person has their period and the other person can't menstruate, that it's what is called, and I'm going to use a little bit of crass language here just so that we're all on the same page about what I'm talking about, because this is probably how you've heard it, whether in the media or whether at school or wherever. There's this stereotype that it is blowjob week. Blowjob being a form of oral sex in which a person's mouth goes on another person's penis. And this really puts pressure on the partner who has their period to perform this kind of sex, and it's an unfair expectation. So we want to remember that just because your partner is menstruating and maybe does not want to engage in sex because of that, it doesn't mean that that's an automatic, oh, so now this partner, it's going to be all about oral sex on the partner who does not menstruate. So that's really problematic, and we want to shy away from that kind of thought and that stereotype. And then lastly, although some people may experience a heightened sex drive while they're on their period, some people may not want to engage in sex at all of any kind while on their period, and that is perfectly fine. And you never owe your partner any explanation for not wanting to engage in any kind of sex other than no. I love the phrase that no is a complete sentence. All right, so now I'm just going to drop these links in the comments before moving on to question number 2. And I don't know if the person who submitted this question is watching or will be watching, but excellent question. Something that we could definitely talk about more as well. So these are the 2 articles that I used, and you can see the sources within these articles as well. Healthline and Bustle are really good resources. All right, so I'm gonna give my thumbs up for anyone who may have had this muted or clicked away while we were talking about the first question, because now we are getting into question number 2, which is a super common question that I'm really happy that we get to go over. And this question is, what is the best birth control? So the answer is that there is no one best birth control, because every person's body is different. What works for one person may not work for another. And this is something that I really, really stress in the classroom. So if anyone's on here who had me in their class in Mexico, I talked about how sometimes when we hear a birth control method, say we're talking about the shot, someone might say, oh, I would never get the shot. You know, my best friend's older sister got the shot and she gained 10 pounds and she broke out and it made her moody, so on and so forth. That could be the case for that person, but you can never base your decision to choose a birth control method based on another person's experience. I think side effects, when we talk about birth control, a lot of people have questions about side effects, and there actually is a video on our health education Facebook about the side effects of birth control. So if you do have questions about that, I encourage you to check that out, and then also head to our Instagram and look at the highlight that's on our page that goes into that topic as well. But for this question, when we say what is the best birth control, although I can't tell you what the best birth control is, there are some birth control methods that are more effective than others. So if you have ever been to the OBGYN, you may have seen charts that rank birth control methods from least to most effective. So that's what I'm going to go over right now. And I will be posting the link to the website that I got this from, and it also has this chart on there. So most consider the IUD and the implant, or an Nexplanon, to be the most effective forms of birth control, aside from sterilization or having your tubes tied, as you may have heard it. Less than 1 in 100 people get pregnant using these methods each year. So just a reminder, the IUD is a little T-shaped device that is inserted into the uterus. There are hormonal IUDs, and these can last anywhere from 3 to 5 years. And then there is a non-hormonal IUD, the copper IUD, that can last up to 12 years. Nexplanon is a little rod that is inserted into your arm, and this lasts for 3 years. So these are considered the most effective methods of birth control. The next most effective methods of birth control include the pill, the patch, the ring, and the shot. These all work similarly by regulating the hormones in your body, and 6 to 9 people out of 100 people get pregnant using these methods every year. So that fluctuates a little bit depending on which of these methods you're using, but they all work similarly and they all are about the same effective in birth control. And then the least effective forms of birth control include the withdrawal method. So if you didn't know, this is when a partner pulls the penis out before ejaculating, and I would argue that this is really not a birth control method. It is definitely not reliable. So if you didn't know what that was, that is what the withdrawal method, or pulling out. And then a diaphragm, fertility awareness. So this is when you keep track of when you're ovulating. And then condoms. So all of these are considered the least effective method of birth control, and 12 to 24 people out of 100 people get pregnant using these methods every year. Again, that 12 to 24, it just fluctuates depending on what form you're using, and also these methods have a lot to do with like human error. It should be noted that condoms are the only form of birth control that protect against STIs. And then using a condom with another birth control method increases your chances of protection. So a person might be on the pill and then they also use condoms. And not only does that protect against STIs, but then you're also doubling up on birth control. What you never want to do is double up on condoms though. So although some forms of birth control are more effective than others, any method is better than none at all. So 90 out of 100 people get pregnant every year who do not use any birth control at all. So that's some information for you. And I will post this link in the comments. Bedsider is another great resource for this. That's a really like adolescent friendly website, and it talks about a whole bunch of topics related to sexual and reproductive health. Oh, I don't know if that posted. Okay. Sorry, let me just go back because I'm not sure if that posted. There we go. All right, on to our next question. Will I bleed the first time I have sex? And this is for people who have vaginas. And the answer to this is a little bit complicated, not necessarily. So it's normal to bleed a little the first time you have sex, but it is also normal not to. So even when someone does bleed if they're having sex for the first time, it's such a small amount that you or your partner may not even notice it. So the reason a person might bleed the first time they have vaginal sex is because of a tissue called the hymen. This is a thin tissue that covers part of the vaginal opening. Sometimes when a person has vaginal sex for the first time, this tissue is stretched, causing slight pain or even bleeding. However, hymens can stretch, or as you may have heard it, you might have heard like break or tear, but these aren't really as accurate terms as actually stretching. That just might be how you've heard it. Hymens can stretch for many reasons long before a person has sex for the first time, including tampons, playing sports, riding a bike, or inserting fingers or sex toys into the vagina. Additionally, and this is something that not a lot of people know, many people are born with little hymen tissue at all, so much so that it may appear that they don't have a hymen at all. Hymens naturally wear down or become thinner over time, so if you were to look with a mirror or try to feel with your fingers, you probably wouldn't see it or feel it. And I got this information from Planned Parenthood, and I will go ahead and link that below. And then just some other information to do with hymens. They do not cover the entire vaginal opening to begin with, otherwise menstrual blood and discharge would not be able to leave your body. The biggest takeaway here is that there's nothing wrong with bleeding or not bleeding during vaginal sex for the first time. And whether or not you bleed is nothing to be ashamed of. So there's really, as you'll notice, like with all topics, pretty much all topics related to sex ed or sexual health, there's really no such thing as like what's normal or not normal. It's all normal. Whether you bleed or not, it's all normal. And then lastly, the last thing I want to go over with this question is that contrary to what you may have heard, sex is not supposed to hurt, even for your first time. So even if a person's hymen is intact, and remember, a lot of the times it's not, or their hymen was never really there to begin with, using lots of lubricant, engaging in foreplay, and taking things slow will reduce the chances of discomfort and pain. And the more uncomfortable that you are, or more nervous or more tense you are, the more likely that it could be painful. So it's important to have conversations with your partner before engaging in sex for the first time. Make sure that you're comfortable. Make sure that you talk with them if you are having those anxieties, because sex is supposed to be pleasurable, period. Okay, so we are going to move on to our last question. And if anyone has any questions, as we're going through, feel free to drop them below. All right, our last question for today is, will my friends and family know if I use health ed services? And the answer to this is no. So our services are completely confidential, which means no one will know if you text, call, message, or DM us, and likewise, no one will know if you actually use our services, whether that be getting free condoms or STI testing or any of our services. We may ask for some information such as your name or your date of birth, but this is only for statistical purposes for our funders, and it is not shared with anyone. Our services are 100% confidential, so unless you are a threat to yourself or others. We will even ask you how you would like to be contacted. So if you live at home, you don't want us to call a home number, you can give us your cell phone number. If you only want to be contacted over Facebook, we'll do that. If you only can be contacted through email, we'll do that. In New York State, people under the age of 18 can access reproductive health care without their parents' or guardians' permission or knowledge, and our services are covered by that as well. The only thing that is important to know is that if you are on your parents' insurance, there is a chance the insurance company will send something home, or like the billing that it could, some insurance companies, it'll say like specifically, for example, like STI testing. Other insurance companies, it might just say a bill to like the Center of Reproductive Health, for example. Some insurance companies give like no details at all, but this differs by insurance company, and that is out of our control. However, we do have something called FPBP, or Family Planning Benefits Plan, which is an insurance plan that you can use instead of your parents' insurance, or if you are uninsured. And this is based off of your individual income, so most adolescents qualify because it doesn't include your parents' or guardians' income on there. In most adolescents, even if you do have a part-time job, you don't make enough money that you're not going to qualify. And it covers most of our services. So if you do have more questions about this, or more specific questions, you can go ahead and contact a health advocate directly to talk this over with you more. Okay, so these were all the questions that I had for you today. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did and you want us to do more Q&A videos, please let us know. Thank you if you submitted a question. And if another question does come up, I'll be posting that anonymous question box again on Monday. So you can submit to it. It is completely anonymous. We won't even see your email. If you'd rather contact us through our DMs, either on the health education page or on the Instagram, we will see your username if you're DMing us, but we'll never say who asked us the question. Same if you're asking us on our personal Facebook pages. But you can also just ask us a question. It doesn't need to be for a video. So literally, if you have a question anytime, feel free to ask us. I hope that everybody has an amazing weekend. And if you have suggestions for videos that you would like to see us do, if any of these topics you would like us to expand on them, please let us know. If you have an idea for something you want us to do with the spot next Friday, let us know that as well. And thank you so much for watching. We will see you next week.